Welcome to First Parish. My name is Kim, and I'm a member of the Worship Committee. First Parish is a vibrant, welcoming congregation that welcomes all people to grow deep faith and take bold action. We're so glad you're here with us today. This sanctuary is made holy by your presence. If you're joining us for the first time, please take a welcome packet from the pew rack. There is information about our services and our childcare. If you fill out the yellow card inside the packet and drop it in the offering plate, you'll receive our weekly email newsletter, which can help you know us better. The greeters and ushers, Tony and Elise, are both wearing colorful name tags, and they'll be standing by the doors after worship is over. Please see them after church, and they can walk to social hour or answer your questions. We strive to make our worship experience accessible to all people of all ages and abilities. The welcome card in your pew provides information on this, or you can speak with an usher. The work of our living faith is done both in and out of worship. So I draw your attention to the printed announcements that come with your order of worship. These announcements are important news of our community life, so please take a look. Now I have Patricia come up for a special announcement.
Good morning. By this time, everybody should have received one of these flyers via email, digitally this week. This is an invitation to an event you do not want to miss. Not next Friday, 2 Fridays from now, May 16th at 7 p.m. right here. We are going to celebrate 2 women of the arts, 2 great women of the arts. One, Julia Child, and the other, Emma Jean Milton. In this evening that we are titling Bon Appetit, you will see an opera singer sing right here on the front of the church as she is cooking a chocolate cake. Not to be missed. It's very funny. And you will also hear Emma Jean perform several pieces on our Schlicker organ as her farewell retirement concert to the community. After both of these performances, we'll go into the parish hall and have desserts a la Julia Child and champagne. For $25, you get all of this. Nobody likes to part with their money, but this will be a really fun way to part with it and to aid the organ fund, which is the whole reason for it. So please come, and at the back of the church today when you leave, there is a box that will hold all of these folders. If you know any place where you might possibly gain a few people, a little more audience, please take a few and put them up. And be sure to bring all your friends. Thank you.
I have the announcement this morning that with a very heavy heart, I have offered my resignation as minister of this congregation effective July 31st. I'll be talking a little more about that and the context and the shape of it and everything in the sermon this morning, but I wanted to let you know that this is one of the times that we are most supported by our gathered community of congregations within the UUA, especially by our district staff. And I wanted to introduce John Gibb Millspaw and Phyllis Terry. John is a member of the staff of the district who will be helping lay leaders through the transition, and Phyllis is a peer consultant who helps congregations with transition time. So this is a very well-scripted process. The parish committee has already got things well in hand to embark on the search for an interim minister and eventually a new settled minister. We have much time before us to say goodbye, but my final Sunday in the pulpit for a full worship service will be June 22nd, and I will be here and available for folks through July 31st. Tony Dutsick now has an announcement.
Good morning, everyone. I think that I can speak safely for all of us by saying that the news of Parisa's resignation has been met with deep sadness at the fact that she will be transitioning away from her ministry in this congregation in the very near future, as well as a sense of deep gratitude for the passion and commitment. We're all singing the blues a little this morning, Mark. Thank you. As I was saying, as well as a deep sense of gratitude for the passion and commitment and soul and commitment to a sense of justice and wit and wisdom and creativity that she has brought to her service to this congregation every single day for the last 10 years. As well as, I would say, a little bit of a sense of excitement about seeing exactly what it is that Parisa is going to get up to next. I think those of us who have had the privilege to work with her closely over the last 10 years have always known that there would be a day that would come when her talents and gifts and ambitions for changing the world would go beyond the vessel of this congregation and extend to the broader world. And so I, for one, am very much looking forward to seeing what that looks like, although there's really no pressure. So, we expect big things, but it's all fine. Just as I think we're all looking forward to seeing how Parisa has used her experience of being our minister to make a big and bold change in the broader world, I also think that she's looking to see from us what we have brought, what we have gotten from the experience of her ministry over the last 10 years in making our congregation the kind of place that can make big, bold changes in this community and in our world. And so inevitably, the talk comes at some point to begin to talk about what happens next for this community. And I have a few very quick announcements on that score. The first of which is to recognize that, as Parisa has said, we do have time to say goodbye. And over the next few weeks, I think the job of your lay leadership, of your parish committee, is largely to be a listening ear, a crying shoulder, and folks that you can look to for support. So you can feel free to contact me or any other member of the parish committee in the next couple of weeks if you have concerns or things that you just want to talk over. Secondly, as Parisa mentioned, the process of finding an interim minister who will serve this congregation starting on August 1st for the next 1 to 2 years has already begun. There is an interim minister search committee that the parish committee will formally appoint tonight that consists of Jen Irby-Leggett, Eric Miller, Walt Hagenbook, Kathy Fagan-Bauer, Marcia Maurer, and Lori McCory. And they are folks that you can talk to with any questions that you might have about what that process looks like. And they and the parish committee will be doing whatever we can to keep you up to date on how that process is progressing. And then lastly, for those of you who have been following your orders of worship, we have some immediate questions and issues that we need to deal with regarding the future of this community and how we match up our resources with our aspirations. And we'll be discussing some of those issues this afternoon after social hour at a town hall meeting on the budget for FY15, which will be taking place in the social hall, again, immediately after social hour. This is your chance to be heard and to express your opinions and to help shape the future of the congregation as we look forward in the next year. Lastly, I just want to say that one of the gifts that Parisa has given to us in the last decade has been her willingness to challenge us to take bold action and to consider bold changes. And so over and over again, we've practiced how we deal with change in this congregation in a way that is loving, that is open, that listens to all who have an opinion, and that works together to find solutions to move our congregation forward. And I look forward, as much as we're all deeply saddened to be losing Parisa at this moment, and as much as we look forward in the next few weeks to celebrating her tenure here in the way that it must be celebrated, which I think is loudly, I'm also looking forward to the process of working with all of you to begin to envision what comes next for this community. So, thanks.
Thank you, Tony. Extending a generous welcome is a spiritual practice. I invite all to extend that welcome to our neighbors by taking a few minutes to greet them. And while you're greeting your neighbors, I ask that you church. Thank you.
to worship by joining in song. Please rise in body or spirit and join in singing our opening hymn, number 1000 in the Teal hymnal, Morning Has Come. Our chalice seems to have miraculously lit itself this morning. I don't know who did it. Thank you. Let's join in our call to worship. Come, let us gather. We gather to celebrate the sacred within and among us. We come to seek spiritual growth and understanding. We strive to practice acceptance, forgiveness, and love. Together, we work to build a world with justice and compassion. Come, let us gather together. Opening words this morning are a poem by Billy Collins called Aristotle.
This is the beginning. Almost anything can happen. This is where you find the creation of life. A fish wriggling into land, the first word of paradise lost on an empty page. Think of an egg, the letter A. Think of an egg, the letter A, a woman ironing on a bare stage as the heavy curtain rises. This is the very beginning. The first person narrator introduces himself, tells us about his lineage. The mezzo-soprano stands in the wings. Here, the climbers are studying a map or pulling on their long woolen socks. This is early on, years before the ark, dawn. The profile of an animal is being smeared on the wall of a cave, and you have not yet learned to crawl. This is the opening, the gambit, a pawn moving forward an inch. This is your first night with her, your first night without her. This is the first part, where the wheels begin to turn, where the elevator begins its ascent, before the doors lurch apart.
This is the middle. Things have had time to get complicated. Messy, really. Nothing is simple anymore. Cities have sprouted up along the rivers, teeming with people at cross purposes. A million schemes, a million wild looks. Disappointment unshoulders his knapsack here and pitches his ragged tent. This is the sticky part, where the plot congeals, where the action suddenly reverses or swerves off in an outrageous direction. Here, the narrator devotes a long paragraph to why Miriam does not want Edward's child. Someone hides a letter under a pillow. Here, the aria reaches to a pitch, a song of betrayal salted with revenge, and the climbing party is stuck on a ledge halfway up the mountain. This is the bridge, the painful modulation. This is the thick of things. So much is crowded into the middle. The guitars of Spain, piles of ripe avocados, Russian uniforms, noisy parties, lakeside kisses, arguments heard through a wall. Too much to name, too much to think about.
And this is the end. The car running out of road, the river losing its name in an ocean, the long nose of the photograph horse touching the white electronic line. This is the colophon, the last elephant in the parade, the empty wheelchair, and pigeons floating down in the evening. Here, the stage is littered with bodies. The narrator leads the characters to their cells, and the climbers are in their graves. It is me hitting the period, and you closing the book. This is the final bit, spinning away to nothing. This is the end, according to Aristotle, what we have all been waiting for, what everything comes down to, the destination we cannot help imagining, a streak of light in the sky, a hat on a peg, and outside the cabin, falling leaves. We long ago set the theme of the month for this month as Ideas of Heaven. And in that vein, our reading from Saving Paradise by Rebecca Parker and Rita Nakashima-Brock. Western Christianity has always stood at the open doors of paradise. However, it became unable to perceive what unfolded before it and sought paradise elsewhere, leaving in its wake legacies of broken hearts, traumatized bodies, fractured cultures. The Puritans came to North America to make themselves and paradise new. Their religious ideas of time and human life have informed American identity that defines freedom and the pursuit of happiness as separation. Ideal life is free from constraints in the exercise of individual conscience and will. Relationships to others inhibit individual rights. What we need now is a religious perspective that doesn't locate salvation in a future endpoint, a transcendent realm or a zone after death. Paradise is not withheld or closed or removed from us. Realizing this requires us to let go of the notion that paradise is life without struggle, life free from wrestling with legacies of injustice and current forces of evil. Assuredly, we are in a world in which struggle continues. However, it's also true we already live on holy ground, in the presence of God, with bodies and souls sanctified by the Spirit's anointing, surrounded by the community of saints. Our spiritual challenge is to embrace this reality. Histories of harm are all around us. Forces of evil operate within and among us. And yet everywhere, the bushes are on fire. The risen Christ is with us on the road. The Spirit rises in the wind. The rivers of paradise circle the earth. And the fountain of wisdom springs up from the earth we tread, from this holy ground. Here ends the reading. as I mentioned earlier, I suggested this month's worship theme last summer at a retreat with our worship committee, partly as a challenge to myself, not realizing how big a challenge it might be later. Though other areas of theology and cosmology have fascinated me, I've never felt particularly drawn to ideas of the afterlife. In fact, I may have been known to emphatically declare on occasion among friends, over a glass of wine or three, about the obsession with salvation and the afterlife and all of the other things that could be done with the energy that is put into that. So it seemed like a good idea for me to lay out it seemed like, at the time, a good idea for me to lay out a worship theme that might get me to dismount that high horse and really engage the topic. My own spiritual life has been embedded with my preaching life in just this way for the 2 decades since I first preached my first sermon pre-seminary at the First Unitarian Church of Albuquerque. And I'm not alone, of course, among modern people of faith, and certainly not among people who are Unitarian Universalists, in my frustration that so much energy is spent on the afterlife, whether it's thought to be behind pearly gates or in another incarnation as a disembodied spirit who could be channeled to speak to living relatives by someone with a spray can and a breathy voice on late-night TV. Since the 19th century, our people have been much more interested in seeing evidence of the divine peeking through our daily life into the transcendent beauty of nature, in the call toward creating a presence that acts and looks more holy, and taking up the work of justice to make it so. I didn't know last summer that my journey of discernment over this past year would lead me here, to the day that I first lead worship after delivering the news that I will be with you just 3 months more. Now there's a parting before us, which, while it's not a death, is a separation that will mark a turning point. And this week I realized that the power of those questions about the afterlife, the wondering about heaven and rebirth and ghosts and ancestral spirits, are really all questions about what happens after goodbye. What comes after the ending? Every parting we have in this life rehearses a possibility for that process. And all of the same questions apply. Will something carry on? What have we left behind? Will we go gracefully or with kicking and screaming? How will this change the lives of those we love? What will be our legacy? All of our farewells have those questions lingering within them, which makes it no wonder that so many of us would say that we hate goodbyes and avoid them in a million ways. It's tempting to check out altogether, or mask our grief with anger to push the separation along, or to skip ahead to a lighthearted and too soon cheery interpretation to keep our chins up. I know this because I went through all of these possibilities in planning the sermon for this morning. We have before us, my friends, a liminal time, a threshold in which to explore all of those questions. What's happened in this decade that we have shared this ministry? What will carry on? What grace is there in naming and honoring our experience together? Not just the shiny, happy bits, but the times of struggle as well. How has this journey we have made changed us? What story will we tell of this time? I will tell you that for me the last decade has been one of surprise at the ways that the holy shows up in church. That may sound funny coming from a minister of a church. But before my call to First Parish, I was convinced that my primary call was to ministry beyond the church, in places where people were struggling and where I could bear witness to that struggle and also, hopefully, work alongside folks who want to make change. And after several years of that work and attempting to connect congregations to that work, I realized I needed to see what the challenges were within congregations to taking up that work. What were the barriers to connection? I arrived here eager to explore all of that and to dive into congregational life, got so much more than I bargained for. Here, I realized the careful practice of seeing paradise right here within and among us, not as perfection, but as grace that arrives in the midst of our human struggles. Growing up in a family that moved around quite a bit and sometimes between cultures, I had never lived in the same house or been deeply connected with the same community for more than 5 years at a time. While I had learned a resilience through change, I hadn't learned the deep lessons of abiding, how to stay in relationship through disappointment, how we can gain intimacy and feel a holy presence when we've offered and received forgiveness, how we appreciate those traits we first might find really annoying when we see where they come from in the other, and how fully they are part of their truth. I had no idea I had so much to learn from being in a community and being known so fully over time. What gifts I would receive from watching children grow up, watching adults move through life's stages, and being held in love by this community as my own family grew and my vocation found its fuller expression over time. Perhaps the greatest gift I have gotten from you, the greatest glimpse of paradise and God's presence, has been learning to show up with more and more parts of myself, to open up to my own vulnerabilities, pieces of my own story I never would have thought I would tell in public, and to be heard with compassion and met with affirmation. You've loved me into showing up not just with my polished skills and carefully constructed prose. You've let me know that those moments of authenticity, even if they're flubbed or graceless, are priceless for how they connect us. This path has led me to uncover the calling that was always nagging but I had no idea how to express, and I'm still not entirely sure of. To use both the gifts and struggles of my bicultural upbringing and bring them into service of connecting others across cultures. You have heard my tough stories and not run away. You've wanted to hear more. You've offered me time and space to explore the further work through my sabbatical 2 years ago. You've offered me the practice grounded in your willingness to embrace multi-generational ministry and broaden styles and expressions of worship for adults and children. I have no idea how to thank you for the gift of this journey and the pleasure it's been to watch you offer that same grace to each other. And it's beautifully bittersweet that this growth you all have inspired in me is also what takes me away from you. Reverend Dr. Josiah Bartlett, in his final letter to friends and family before he died, wrote that ministry is by nature the best seat in the theater of life. My time here as minister has been a privileged seat from which to see and marvel at the ways you've met life's challenges, seeing you through divorce and child rearing and addictions and job loss, and how and where you are called, and to be trusted to hold your struggles, your insights, and celebrate the moments and movements of your lives through it all. And I'm proud to say that our practice together has been to consistently honor and name that of paradise that is present among us in church community, to find the source of our identity, what makes this church unique, and also what makes it universal. As we considered the meaning of membership, and to take those questions into discernment of a covenant that would express our current convictions of the faith community, and to explore how we want to name that call to a wider audience with our guiding statement, we welcome all to grow deep faith and take bold action. And then explore the possibility of the bold action of sharing a building with Temple Shalom. Along the way, we've learned from and offered mentorship to other congregations in our association through the Leap of Faith program. We've grown in lay ownership and leadership. We've changed our liturgy and expanded the musical expressions we share in worship. And we've made our sanctuary and bathrooms fully accessible. We've journeyed to the Gulf Coast and become a mainstay of participation in the Mother's Day Walk for Peace. We've co-founded Jericho Road Roxbury, partnered with the Channing School, strengthened our caring ministry with community members in need, reached out in interfaith witness when Temple Shalom was vandalized, and had some terrific parties that celebrated this shared life. In the days and weeks ahead, though we may not know what comes after goodbye, I wish for us ample time to walk solidly on the ground of this liminal time. A time to name and honor what's true, to ask and receive forgiveness, to offer blessings and begin to imagine together what's after goodbye. There are so many feelings that can take root in this time, all of them part of the journey. It's a decision we didn't make together, and so there may be some anger at this, some frustration, some concern. There's the foiled feeling of having grown someone to the stage of parting from you, the mixed emotion of knowing that it was your success that brought this parting about. There'll be time for recollecting the great moments and uncovering what is before us, though it might be on different paths. Somehow I believe that as we walk this ground, if we can stay present to the grace and beauty of the moment, not rushing past the goodbye or delaying it until it can be a perfunctory nod to the inevitable, but really savoring the moments of reflecting on what's been important, what movement of spirit we've invoked in each other, and how the moments of joy and the hard lessons have shaped us. We can see God's grace speaking at us through the tears, through the regrets, through the hopes, and through the laughter. We'll see the paradise that's with us in the midst of struggle, and the creative possibilities that are born when we let ourselves to the edge of what we know, and open our imaginations ever wider to embrace a life not yet dreamed of, but ours to live. There are some very present challenges ahead of us, and I intend to stay present to them as we walk through this journey of budget season and annual meeting and all of those details. But I want us to walk through all of that, aware that our solemn and sacred task is this creation, this uncovering of the paradise that is right here before us, the best of the goodness we know, though it is not a time without struggle, it is not a time without fear. It is a time also where we can magnify hope, grow the goodness we see, and grow the possibilities before us. So I ask, as we embark on this time of farewell, that we call ourselves back to our covenant, which will be our key and binding reminder of our commitment as we walk this tender road. Please join me in saying the covenant together. In devotion to truth, searching spiritual paths, we honor the living legacy of our faith in the human potential for goodness and in the God of limitless love in whom we are one. We unite in faith to celebrate the sacred as it reveals itself within and among us, to promote spiritual growth and to care for those in need, to honor and protect the natural world, which inspires wonder and sustains life, to walk together in peace, committed to justice and compassion in our world. As we enter into our time of prayer, I invite you to join in singing Seated Meditation on Breathing, 1009 in the Teal hymnal. Let us pray. God of life, in this time of turning, this time of in-between, we offer a blessing for the time that is neither one nor the other, but in between, for the time in which we are both. We are many identities and loves, many genders and none. We might be between roles at the intersection of histories, between place and place, crisscrossed paths of memory and destination, streaks of light swirled together, neither day nor night, both, neither, all. May the sacred in-between suspend our certainties, soften our judgment, widen our vision, ignite our imagination. May the time in between illuminate our way to the God who transcends all definition. May the in-between people who have come to pray be lifted up into this liminal singing. Though we can't always define, we can always say a blessing. And we say blessings on all of those who come with struggle in their hearts, with illnesses of mind, body, and spirit, for loved ones and caregivers caught between care for another and care for self. For those who have let go of this life, we celebrate the well-lived life of Francis Perry, Asadi, and Chris, and who died at age 92. For all of those in the world living between shelter and no shelter, between hunger and being fed, for those who are living without in so many ways, yearning for more, the prayer of abundance, the possibility and hope of transformation, that we might ignite in this time of new imagining. Be with us all as we hold the swirl of emotions, the tide of our days, lifting out blessings for all of those things that reside still in our hearts in these moments of silence. For the promised land that is the sacred ground beneath our feet, we offer blessings and great thanksgiving. Amen. We all know that one of the ways that we are carving our next piece of creation is by joining with the Louis B. Brown Peace Institute in the Mother's Day Walk for Peace, which I hope you will all join in with us next week, next Sunday morning, 8:30, Town Field in Dorchester. And Elise Henricks has a brief testimonial to offer about that walk.
Good morning. My name is Elise Henricks, and I'm a member of the Social Action Committee here at First Parish. I live and work in Dorchester. I've been a family doctor at the Uplands Corner Health Center there for about 16 years, and every day on my way to work, I pass by the offices of the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute. This year, I'll be making the walk on Mother's Day, and with Team First Parish Milton. What motivates me to walk on Mother's Day? Well, about 8 years ago, one of my patients was shot. He was in his early 20s, a young Cape Verdean male who fit the description of so many victims of violence in the Dorchester community. I didn't know him that well before the event, but over many visits since then, I've witnessed his quiet determination to get on with his life. Tragically, a few years later, his brother was also killed by gunfire, also in Dorchester. Then another patient's son was killed while standing on a street corner near Fields Corner. Nothing I learned in medical school prepared me for the conversation I had to have with her at our next visit. Then there's the toll that violence takes in the form of loss to incarceration. When my patients lose a member of their family to jail, and it's more often a young man, they lose a breadwinner, a parent, a lover, a brother, a son. Lastly, what got me involved was the kids. Obesity among all of our kids is on the rise. But what do I say to the mother of an overweight child when she tells me her daughter watches 4 hours of television a day because it's not safe to play outside in her neighborhood? How can you thrive in a community where you can't walk safely down the street in the middle of the day? I know what some people say about Dorchester and Roxbury. They say you shouldn't drive down some streets, you shouldn't take some buses, you should take the other way to get across town. And as I drive down Talbot Ave past the playground where I know a shooting took place a few years ago, sometimes I hope the light stays green and I don't have to linger there. But then I see kids playing in the sprinkler and I know they have to live with this vulnerability every day. They don't have a choice. One of my mantras when the workday gets hard is to just put one foot in front of the other. That's all I can do, just keep on going. It seems overwhelming. How can I solve the massive problems which contribute to the root causes of violence? Walking won't change what's already happened. But walking does change something. By walking down the streets of Bowdoin and Geneva with others, I'm bearing witness that I believe no mother should ever have to survive the loss of her child to violence. It's wrong and it's preventable. At a previous walk, Parisa encouraged us to reach out to those who had lost loved ones, to ask them to tell their stories. It was incredibly challenging to do this. I remember walking next to a woman who had a picture of a young girl on her t-shirt. As I gathered up the courage to break the ice, I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff peering into an abyss. How do you ask someone to share such a terrible thing? But the way I imagine it is this: when you experience such a monumental loss as the violent death of a loved one, it's like you're being asked to carry a giant bag of rocks for the rest of your life. By listening to the story and walking beside a survivor, I'm agreeing to take from that bag one rock. It might be a pebble, but I'm trying to take it from that person. I'm rolling it around in my hand, trying to understand the rough edges and grooves, and I'm putting it in my pocket. The bag may not feel any lighter to my companion, but I will carry that rock with me so I can feel the weight of change that I need to be in this world. I hope you will join us in this important act of witness next Sunday. Thank you.
Let there be an offering to strengthen this place, which is sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and hope, for we are now the keepers of the dream. The offering now will be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared hope and values.
Please join me in blessing the offering. May these gifts be transformed into strength for this faith community, into comfort, food, and shelter for those in need, and may we be transformed by generosity. Please join in singing Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, number 126. Words of William Safford. It could happen any time, tornado, earthquake, Armageddon. It could happen. Or sunshine, love, salvation. It could, you know. That's why we wake and look out. No guarantees in this life. But some bonuses, like morning, like right now, like noon, like evening. I send us forth to treasure each moment, to find the hidden seeds of paradise that lie scattered right before us, to feel the sacred ground beneath our feet, to see the bushes on fire, and to move toward broadened imagination, greater vision, and new horizons. Go in peace.